Nikola Jokic is one of the most unfairly disrespected stars in the last decade. He's so dominant as a big in this modern era that people need to find any reason to hate on his greatness. And with Jokic and the Denver Nuggets making it to the NBA Finals for the first time and having a good chance of actually winning it all, people are going to have to stop overlooking Jokic in a lot of these best in the world conversations, some all-time conversations, etc. People are going to have to start giving Jokic his respect. But in honor of Nikola Jokic finally making it to the NBA Finals, let's debunk some of the biggest lies ever told about him and his legacy. The first lie I want to talk about is the notion that Jokic is a stat padder. And to preface, I have no problem with stat padding at its core. It's really not that big of a deal and it's generally overblown by NBA media. But the lie that Jokic is a stat padder was legitimately used as a reason why he shouldn't have won MVP this year by talking heads like Kendrick Perkins. And to me, it seems like any player who does anything elite outside of scoring gets accused of stat padding. Look at LeBron, look at Russ, look at Harden. When I think of players that get accused of stat padding the most, it's those three guys. And what do those three guys have in common? All three of them have elite qualities outside of scoring. And the same applies to Nikola Jokic as well. And Kendrick Perkins alluded to Jokic being a stat padder when talking about the MVP, and it just makes no sense.
When I made that comment, it had everything to do with the MVP conversation.
Okay, that's a different conversation. Right? Now let's have this up.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say.
To imply that Jokic is a stat padder, it would mean that his impact is minimally or barely felt by the Nuggets offense. And I know how much casuals hate advanced stats, but Jokic leads the league in total win shares, offensive win shares per 48, PER, offensive and defensive box plus minus, and he leads the league in true shooting percentage. When Jokic is on the court, the Nuggets offense is 18.7 points better than when he's off the court. The Nuggets also turn the ball over 2.4% less when Jokic is on the court, and they tend to rebound more as their rebound percentage goes up 4%, and their assist percentage goes up 13% when he's on the floor. And the stat padding narrative gets even dumber when you realize that Jokic isn't even in the top 10 in usage percentage. His usage rate is only like 27%, and that comes in at like 15th. That doesn't even hold a candle to Giannis, who leads the league in usage percentage at nearly 39%. And when you look at the Nuggets point differential, it's not big enough to where Jokic would feel the need to start padding his stats. Again, the stat padding narrative was just used in order to make sure that Jokic didn't win the MVP this year, because realistically speaking, nobody wanted Jokic to win it this year. And let me just say this about the MVP real quick. Nikola Jokic was robbed, okay? He 100% deserved the MVP award this year. It shouldn't have been Embiid. They gave it to Embiid because he's been crying for the past 3 years that he hasn't won it. It was Nikola Jokic. And the thing is, they threw every single false narrative at this dude. They tried to say that he only won it because he's white. They tried so hard to downplay advanced stats and how many advanced stats Nikola Jokic leads in. And then they try to minimize his impact with this whole stat padding narrative. Like, it would have made sense to not give Jokic the MVP if his team wasn't number one in his conference. But the fact that Jokic had better overall stats, he had the better record, he had the better team, and he had the bigger impact on his team, it just showed that they were just grasping for straws at that point. But yeah, man, enough about the MVP award. Let's get on to the next lie. The second lie I want to talk about is the notion that Nikola Jokic is a bad defender. And this has been a thing since 2020 when the Nuggets faced the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. And it's not even Jokic's fault per se, it's just the fact that he's a slow-footed big, and slow-footed big men tend to be labeled as bad defenders due to their lack of speed. But when you actually watch Jokic play defense, he's not a bad defender by any metric. When he's defending in the post, he does a good job of staying physical, he's a decent rim protector, and he's actually really good at poking the ball loose. Now, where people call Jokic a bad defender is usually when he's defending the pick and roll, and that's where a majority of this narrative comes from, because it was put onto him because the Nuggets didn't have the personnel to prevent teams from making Jokic step up on screens. Before the 2022 season, Denver really struggled defending teams like Phoenix and Golden State because both teams would try their hardest to bring Jokic out on the perimeter. And because the Nuggets didn't have a counter, when the screen was set, Jokic got beat on every single pick and roll, which resulted in either a 3 or a mid-range shot. It was a huge reason why the Suns swept them in 2021, because they were just constantly giving up mid-range shots to Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And if Jokic were to step up on those, he would leave an easy lane for DeAndre Ayton in the paint. But what I find funny is that people are trying to put this on Jokic mostly, but they aren't talking about the point of attack defenders that get beat on every single screen. When your point of attack defender is Campazzo or Will Barton, it really shouldn't come as a surprise to see that the Suns are going to take advantage of the pick and roll every single time, especially when they have Chris Paul, who's one of the greatest playmakers in NBA history and who arguably operates the best in the pick and roll.
For the Nuggets, Danny averaged 12 in the playoff series against Portland. Paul, Crowder in the corner.
0 for 4 start for Porter Jr.
Leading is Paul over Campazzo.
Thought his play was inspirational in game 1. He was aggressive. He was trying to put pressure on him. For regular warm-ups, he still was wrapped up with a heat pack. So it looks like his movement, you would think Phoenix would be up by double figures the way they're shooting. Nice
look
pass.
at this.
Remember, they were a +10 in the third quarter of game 1.
Oh! Come a little quicker, get a little tighter. Good screen. Oh, Paul gets free.
Of stops together.
There's Paul, Aiton stride and skate.
Here is Paul. The pull-up is good.
Every time.
Paul again. The mid-range.
Just under 90% from the line, and here he goes. Mid-range shot again. Paul trying to punch it down low. Jokic comes out on him. Shot clock at 1. He's got to fire. Oh! 2 screens. Paul ready to fire. Paul, he cannot miss.
Defensively to take him out the game, and those guys will play.
Look at that play. Look at that play. Name from Nugget lore. Crowder with a 3. Kansas. Here comes Paul. On top Booker. Into Green. Mid-range changes. The Suns have brought in Cam Johnson. 3. Booker.
First 2 games of this series. Booker leaves, Aiton able to finish.
Ironically, a very similar case to this was Game 7 of the Sixers-Celtics series this year, where the MVP, Joel Embiid, who's regarded as the superior defender to Jokic, was in the same predicament.
On him, shot clock winding down, Tatum off the bounce, gets inside, and banks it in. 3, doesn't settle, which is so crucial. Swerving around Embiid. Step back, 3-pointer, got it! Back going for that rebound. Tatum's been unstoppable. Step back, another 3. Puts it in! Jason Tatum is scoring! Tatum goes right at Embiid, flips it up, shot won't go, but a pass. Tatum finding his room. Once again, Embiid on it. Here's the double team. Get it out of his hands. Horford picks it up. Jaylen Brown.
He's a slow-footed big man, he's not that great at stepping up on screens, and the Celtics took advantage of that. The point of attack defenders on the Sixers failed to defend the screens properly, which gave Boston a lot of open threes. Jason Tatum definitely benefited from this because there were possessions where he had Embiid on the island, and every single time off a screen, Embiid was either late on the switch or he was left on the island trying to guard somebody on the perimeter. And spoiler alert, Jason Tatum dropped 51 in that game. And it's not a matter of Embiid or Jokic being a bad defender, it just comes down to both players being slow-footed bigs and the point of attack defenders not doing their job properly. And you notice a huge difference with this when the Nuggets got KCP and Bruce Brown. You don't see Nikola Jokic getting beat on every single pick and roll like you saw in those 2 series. In that 2021 Suns-Nuggets series, you'll see how many opportunities DeAndre Ayton gets at the rim. And if you look at his shot chart, a majority of his shots came at the rim, and they were mostly through the pick and roll. And you got to give Mike Malone a lot of credit as well, adjusting with this whole Jokic thing in the pick and roll. The Nuggets got better point of attack defenders. They do a good job of using Jokic to double and bring help, and just overall doing a better job defending screens in general. And even this year against a completely different Suns roster, they did a good job getting KD and Devin Booker to force up bad shots.
Way too easy. Our fourth quarter defense has to be great.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Point with Durant on the bench with those forcing the opening. Can they steal one here in game 2? Durant fires. Durant fades.
They did a lot of double teaming. They bring help from Aaron Gordon and Jokic, and they held Kevin Durant to 45% shooting from the field, which to some isn't that bad, but given that Durant usually shoots above 50%, it is a credit to how well their defense was. And even if you want to look at some of the stats, I mean, The Nuggets only allow 105.3 points per game per 100 possessions in these playoffs, and Jokic's career defensive rating is 107.3, which is above league average. Throughout the entire span of Jokic's career so far, the league average defensive rating is 110.5. Much like the James Harden video, I would say that Jokic is closer to being a good defender than a bad defender. And the third lie I want to talk about is the whole Jokic hasn't proven himself in the playoffs thing. And this one is laughable to me because I did kind of fall for it at one point in the season, but that was literally just because of the lack of team success that I saw from the past 2 years up to that point. It definitely clouded my judgment when it came to Jokic's playoff performances. For his career, Jokic averages 27, 12, and 7 on 61% true shooting in the playoffs. Even when you look at some of his individual playoff series, his playoff debut in 2019, I know some might get the impression that his team was a superior team and a championship contender or whatnot, but even though they were the 2 seed, they were only 6 games above the 8 seed. In fact, Denver had lower odds to win the title that year than the Utah Jazz, New Orleans Pelicans, and the OKC Thunder. And the Nuggets ended up finishing further in the playoffs that year than all 3 of those teams. And even though in both series against the Spurs and the Trailblazers, they ended up going 7 games, Jokic still put up crazy numbers. In his debut playoff series, he put up 23, 12, and 9 per game. And against the Trailblazers, he put up 27 and 14 per game. And then fast forward to 2021, the series where he got quote-unquote exposed, Jokic put up 25, 13, and 6. And that's one thing that really strikes me, is that people had this idea that Jokic is not a player whose game translates to the playoffs well. And if you just look at the numbers, that's just not true. It's literally objectively not true. The 2 seasons that he won MVP, he got criticized for getting swept in 2021 and then getting gentlemen swept by the eventual champions in 2022. Despite the fact that he put up phenomenal stats in both of those series, and he was without Jamal Murray, his second best player, his co-star. And it's laughable to me that we have excuses for guys like LeBron James for winning with terrible rosters and carrying terrible rosters to wins. But when it comes to Nikola Jokic and carrying bad rosters, nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that he didn't have MPJ and Jamal Murray in 2022, and he still led his team to 48 wins. You seriously expect Nikola Jokic to carry your team to a championship where his second best player is Campazzo? Campazzo, are you for real? And now that he actually has a team around him, that all his players are healthy, you see the result. They're in the finals now. And it's not like they played some like weak ass run. No. In the first round, they played the Timberwolves, which is like fair enough. They're not that great. But in the second round, they faced the Phoenix Suns, who just got Kevin Durant, who were heavy title favorites, by the way, and they beat them convincingly in 6 games. And then in the Western Conference Finals, they faced the Lakers team, who everybody thought they were just going to run through the West. And not only did they beat the Lakers, but they swept them. So far in the 2023 playoffs, Nikola Jokic is averaging a 30-point triple-double with 30, 14, and 10. That makes Jokic the first player in NBA history to ever average a triple-double throughout the first 15 games of a postseason. And it also puts him 3rd in all-time playoff triple-doubles. And it's crazy to me that Jokic is doing all these amazing feats, and he's still not getting the credit that he deserves. And it's not even just Nikola Jokic. This Nuggets team as a whole, it's not getting the credit that they deserve. Like, I'm watching some of these clips on ESPN, and I could just tell they hate talking about Jokic because they know that yes, he is a great player, but he's not gonna bring viewership. He's very similar to like a Tim Duncan. He's very talented, his team is great, he helped build a great culture. The only thing is he's very reserved. He doesn't like doing interviews that much. He doesn't do sponsorships and whatnot. He's a very chill, reserved player. And because the NBA and basketball in general is a very narrative driven sport, I mean, they can't really do much with a Nikola Jokic narrative without creating unrealistic expectations and whatnot. But I'll say this, if you enjoy basketball, if you are a true basketball fan, you would love Nikola Jokic's game, and you would love the fact that he's in the NBA Finals right now. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button. If you want more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. More videos will be on the way soon. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I'm out. Peace.